I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm so thrilled to be talking to Josh Holloway and Rachel Hilson all about their new series, Duster. And Josh, in starting with you and talking about your character, I know that once you got this role, you were working very closely with Troy Brown, who was the stunt coordinator on the series.
Yes.
And I was really interested in how spending that time with him and even just, being behind the wheel in that way actually really helped you to develop your character and to really understand some of the personality traits and characteristics that felt important to him.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real segue into the character of Jim. I mean, immediately the first conversation I had with JJ is like, you're a wheelman for the Mafia in 1972. You drive a Duster. I was like, Duster, let me figure out that car. Let me call up a stunt driving school. So I went to Rick Seaman's stunt driving school. He's a legendary stunt driver from years back. So I did an intensive with him. Learned all about what cars can do. It was phenomenal. It was like going to Disneyland training for me, because I like that kind of stuff. And then after you do that, you have what you call a tune-up. You have a private teacher, and that's when you really can refine your precision and really putting the license plate in the camera or parallel parking in a slide, that kind of stuff. So I was able to do that first with Rick Seaman, then with Chris Peterson, and then Troy. Then there was we filmed an earlier pilot, so I worked with another stunt coordinator, Greg, for a while, but back to the Troy. So I get to set, and Troy Brown really had the confidence to allow me to do this, because he's like, come out to the track, let's see what you got. And we drove for a day, and he's like, you can do all of these. And I was like, no, I really can't, Troy. I don't feel comfortable with that. And he really just gave me the confidence and said, yeah, you can do these, and made me do them and film them, and until I felt confident with it, and then they allowed me to do it. And it just added such an element to the character. And I felt like he just needed to be his comfort zone. When he's in his kitchen, there's nothing that can bother him and touch him. And so getting familiar with a 1972 car again, some have power steering, some do not. Some are 4 on the floor, others are, set up for stunts. So each one is different, as vintage cars are. You have to know their quirks. So I had to learn the quirks of 4 Dusters. It was a lot of fun.
And we all live to see another day.
Yes, barely.
I love that. And for you, Rachel, I mean, so much of your character and her objectives throughout the series stem from what happened to her father, which we learn in the first episode. And I was interested in how that really shaped a lot of who she is for you, because she feels like a character who is very much shaped by the formative experience of her parents, and especially what happened to her dad.
Yeah, I think that is at the core of her. I think she is, at her core, this still just a wounded little girl who experienced the loss of one of the most important people in her life. And I think that's stayed with her entire life. And I think she had a goal from a young age to, find a way to reach this person that she believes is responsible, and take them down. And I think when she discovered that this was a route to do it through the FBI, she just had a one-track mind about it. And I think throughout the season, you really see that tenacity and that stubbornness and that inability to take no for an answer. And it all, comes from this underbelly of vulnerability and rawness.
Yeah, definitely. And, and Josh, one of the things that your character prides himself on is not being a snitch, but ultimately he then ends up in a position where he's having to compromise what his previous morals were, but for good reason. And I was interested in how you wanted to carry that journey, because it's a lot that he has to really internally reconcile with himself.
Yes, that was a big concern of mine and a big discussion between myself and JJ and LaToya, because that happens in the first episode. I was And I'm like, wait a second, he's been driving for his mafia family since he was 16 years old. He's not just going to roll over on them. So we really had to discuss that and find real stakes that would make him question that. And even in doing that, we talked about, he's just going to string her along as he can and then get rid of it. That was his plan. But as the threads start unraveling, he's getting more information, and you find ultimately his loyalty lies with his biological family and his closeness with his brother and his father. And as much as he wants to deny that this other father of his, surrogate father, being his mafia family, could do something like that, he's just shown too much evidence pointing in these directions. So his loyalty ultimately lies there with his brother, and I think what really opens him up to even considering that possibility is when she shares her story about her father and the vulnerability and the truth he sees coming from her. He doesn't want to be in this relationship. He doesn't want this to be true or have any truth to it, but that rings true. And so that creates a doubt that he has to reconcile.
Yeah. And Rachel, one of the things that I love with your character is she takes a lot of self-ownership over her confidence and her abilities, and she has all of the smarts and all of the intelligence. She can back up every single thing that she's accomplished and that she claims, but she's also not afraid to share the space. Like there's a beautiful point where, she's talking to her boss and she's like, Owan had a brilliant idea. So she also gives credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
And how did you want to portray and capture that sense of, self-accomplishment that she has in that way?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because I think that's a really important part of being in a white male-dominated space is you immediately recognize your allies, I think. And I think, it had to build a little bit, but with Awan, once they developed that closeness, she recognizes that he is also, treated poorly, underestimated. And I think she wants to give, she'll find any opportunity, I think, to also lift him up and lift her allies up, her comrades up, in a sense. So I love that you mentioned that and noticed that, because I think that's a huge part of the minority struggle, especially in this era. But I think, she knows her worth. She knows how smart she is, how talented she is. I don't think she's interested in proving anything to anybody. I think she just knows who she is, and knows that she is good at what she does, and she doesn't need the approval or the backing of anybody. We see that in every time she goes against an order, because she knows what she can do.
I think one of the things that you both also bring into your performance and into these characters is they have a real understanding of how to control their emotions and what they're giving away, because they're both in constant situations where they have to make sure they're not revealing too much of themselves. And I was interested in how you both kind of found that layer within your performance and the importance of it for your characters.
Do you want to go first?
No.
Okay. Great.
Because I was still stuck on the past question. I just wanted to add about my daughter as well. I forgot. That was that relationship, too. The possibility of not growing up with a daughter and the fact that he killed my brother. Yeah. Those two elements. I was like, what about my daughter? I forgot to mention that. So go on. What's the next question?
The layers and not wanting to reveal too much.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we are all putting on some performance. And I think that's definitely true of Nina. I think we get to see her sort of drop the facade in those moments she talks to her mom, or in the moments she is able to get vulnerable with Awan. And I think those really emphasize the other moments, the majority of the time when she's putting on this, fierce and powerful front of sorts. I think there's truth to it for sure, but I think she doesn't want to let anybody, she doesn't want to give anybody an opportunity to doubt her and her power. And then I think, you add in the undercover stuff and all of the other things, and it adds more layers, which are just really fun to play, because everybody's kind of undercover in a sense, I think, in a psych
And Jim works for the mafia, so that's a Tuesday. I'm hiding something all the time. I'm not revealing too much information. That's just my job on a daily. And then it feels like, also that's my family, mafia family. I'm very comfortable in that. But then there's the relationship with my father and stepmother, and that's kind of the raw, more Jim that is just open.
Yeah.
He's open with his father, and more guarded with naturally in his mafia world, and that plays out when Charlotte, overhears him telling his father what he's gonna do, and then she, throws him under the bus and stuff. But he's very open with his father, and then guarded elsewhere. So I like the difference, and very open with his, but guarded with his daughter. So it's like this. So that's always a fun line to walk, and all the suspicion when I'm finding out information, and yet I'm with Sax. All those moments, those layers of doubt and trust, and doubt and trust in that battle was constant.
I feel like you both also touch upon such a great point, which is, the writing that LaToya and JJ have brought into this show has those nuances in the different relationships, and even the way that your characters are together. When they first meet each other, they're completely opposing sides, but you can kind of see that they have an immediate respect for each other. You can tell that he even respects the fact that she had the balls to just get in his car and sit there and wait for him.
Yes.
And then they kind of pull each other a little bit more into each other's circles in different ways, because she's more kind of like prescriptive and premeditated, and he's more gut instinct. So as you developed through the episodes, how did you want that evolution to gradually build with them?
Yeah, well, I think that first scene between the two of us is also a good example of these like sort of layers and performances that we're putting on, because it's like right after we meet and we have our like intense exchange, we're both like, oh fuck, or oh that shit, shoot.
I think we say fuck. It is HBO.
Yeah.
You can say
it. I think they're constently sort of.
And the outside stakes are building. The stakes with his daughter and the woman he loves, and the stakes with his mafia family, and her stakes of losing her job, and so we're like
they constantly
forced to like, let's get this done or figure this out.
Yeah.
So the stakes are pushing us towards answers that maybe, we are not sure we want, or I'm not sure I want those answers yet. But their writing is brilliant in that way, that outside stakes are pushing you towards a resolve of some sort.
One of the details that I thought was so brilliant with Nina as well is the detail of her doing push-ups.
Yeah.
And then we learn that that's because an ex taught her that thing is just, if you're feeling anxious, drop on the floor, do some push-ups.
Yeah.
It'll push it out of your mind because you're focused on something else. And I was interested in how that just like gave you a bit more of the vulnerability, and also kind of, on the opposite side of the confidence, it's like there is an underlying anxiety, and there are moments where she's questioning herself as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love that trait. It was fun for me too, because I got to challenge myself over the course of shooting to, get stronger and, do as many as I could. Yeah, I think, because it's, it's human. We all have ways that we decompress or try to, cope with what's going on in our lives. And we just all have these little moments, whether it's like, going to the bathroom and crying. I was just watching broadcast news, and I just love, I don't know if you know that movie about Holly Hunter. She just like sits on the bed and she just cries sometimes.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that, because those are we just have our ways of coping.
Jim gets in a car
and Jim
drives
gets in a car,
fast, and then he feels better.
Yeah. So it's those moments, again, it speaks to their writing. It's those human qualities that they really, thought were important to include. Yeah.
Because Jim also as well, he has his daughter with his relationship that you were bringing up earlier, and it just feels like that really grounds him and centers him, and it feels like a really important aspect to have in a character like this, that it can kind of bring him back from everything that he's involved in his day to day and just have that side. And how did that give you a really different side to get to play of the character?
Oh, that blew me up when JJ first pitched me the show, and he said, "And you have a daughter, but she calls you uncle because you work for the mafia, and your wife divorced you or wouldn't marry you, gave you a choice, and you're like, fuck, I don't have a choice. It's who I am. But it's my daughter." And I love that relationship because I have a daughter. I have a son and a daughter, and our relationship is so close. And I obviously had that to bring into as a father, to bring into that, and just thinking of my daughter sitting over there counting money and me flying around with her and being on adventures was just so exciting. And then JJ said, "Go watch Paper Moon," for that relationship, and it was just brilliant. The layers there, and the showing her love, but as an uncle, but as a father. So that's a fine line to walk. So I just love that scene when we're playing hooks and ladders, but we're actually planning a heist together, and then she asks about her father, and it's just brilliant writing with JJ and LaToya, and to play that killed me. I loved that scene, so that relationship is fantastic.
And I was interested in playing the scene when Nina first is face-to-face with Saxton, because again, without giving away any of the specifics, it's like inevitably they're going to end up in a room together. Yeah. And when they finally do, she's not able to say who she is straight out of the gate. She's there under a different guise. Yeah. And so what was that like in terms of just playing this massive undercurrent of everything that she's probably feeling and all the emotions in that moment?
Yeah. There's so much going on in that scene and within her. I definitely, as Rachel the actor, came in with excitement and nerves and anticipation, just working with Keith David, because he's such a powerhouse. So I think I was able to use a lot of that in Nina's, in the way that Nina was feeling, because that's a critical moment. That's like, I feel like the real like sort of like turning point for Nina. It's like the key is like in the hole, and she's like finally getting this opportunity that I think she's been waiting for her entire life, really. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there.
For both, too, because now
yeah.
she's entered my world.
Yeah, there's also just no turning back after that moment.
There's no turning back, exactly. That was a point of no return.
Yeah.
For both characters.
Yeah. So it's like she's in it. It is life or death, truly, at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love these characters that you've built, so congratulations on amazing performances, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yay.